This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about recycling the happiest days, optimal dip time for cookies and milk, and promming at the prom. All that and more as we watch Season 3, Episode 19 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello, listener, and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers free watch podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Imran. I'm here every week with my sister and co-host, Sophia. What's up, Sophia?
Hello, Imran. I just took a quiz in Cosmo, and I got every answer right, 100%.
100%, huh?
100%. I'm feeling good.
You are compatible with your hairdresser. Is that what the quiz was? Are we compatible?
Yes.
You're confirmed. Great.
Well, originally I was the second most compatible with my hairdresser, but then there was an extra credit question, and I got the extra points, and now I am most compatible.
That's fantastic. Ties in perfectly with this episode of Perfect Strangers, Season 3, Episode 19, titled The Graduate.
The Graduate. I wonder what this could be about.
It's got to be a reference to the classic 1967 Mike Nichols film of the same name, The Graduate, of course, starring Dustin Hoffman and Bancroft. A classic movie. If you like movies at all, you should watch this. It's one everyone should watch.
I think from forever on, after 1967, anytime pop culture says the plus Graduate, it is a callback to this film.
I mean, you got that great song, Simon and Garfunkel. Cuckoo, Cachoo, Mrs. Robinson. Cuckoo, Cachoo.
Cuckoo, Cachoo. But fast forward to 1988, if you were to open the TV guide and to check out what this episode will be about, it would have read, if anyone deserves a graduation ceremony, it's Balky, who knocks himself out for top honors in his night school class, then learns there'll be no ceremony or prom.
Oh.
Womp, womp.
Wah, wah, wah. Of course, starring the hilarious and wonderful Bronson Pinchot as Balky Bartokomous, Mark Lindbaker as Larry Appleton. We have appearances from Rebecca Arthur as Mary Ann, Melanie Wilson as Jennifer, Belita Moreno as Lydia Markham, Joe Marie Payton as Harriet Winslow, and a teacher whose name is Mr. Jones, played by Peter Crombie.
But who played Henry Fong?
Henry Fong, I could not find that guy's name, but he deserves
really?
credit. I don't know. Can you look
Fong.
it up? How do we find it? It wasn't in any of.
We
let's
will
see.
find it.
I think it's important. We need to point out Henry Fong. So it's not on IMDb. It's a shame because the dude had lines, and I can't find what his name is. Shout out to the guy who played Henry Fong.
Henry Fong, whoever you are, if you're out there.
You will forever be in our hearts. Who is Henry Fong? We're going to find out as this episode originally aired March 9th, 1988.
Act 1, let's get into it. Act 1, we're in the apartment, and Balky is on the couch being like super exhausted, almost falling asleep. So we get the impression that it's like late at night. And Larry's standing very upright, holding a book up in front of his face and a ruler in his other hand off to the side. And we hear him drilling Balky on like history questions. And he's barking them out like a boot camp instructor or something. He's like, Balky. And then he goes, Balky. And then he slaps the ruler on his leg and he goes, ow. And that becomes a recurring gag in this scene, at least. So he's quizzing Balky about like the presidents, the different presidents. Balky's answering. The 14th was Franklin Pierce.
He knows this. Balky knows this.
And Larry's just like hitting him his own leg with the ruler the whole time. And then Balky is like tired. He's like, he's done studying. He needs to go to bed. The exam's tomorrow. And Larry stops him. He won't let him sleep. And he's like insistent. He's like buggy-eyed, frantic Larry. And he insists that Balky must get an A on the history final because he's so close to graduating at the top of his class. And this is graduating from high school.
Night school.
American high school. at night.
This is night school for adults. So Balky, they're studying for his night school final exam. And Larry has just given him the plot of the episode. You have to get an A on your history final, and he will graduate at the top of your class.
The plot of the first half of the episode.
Yeah. And Balky goes, oh, well, that's very nice, cousin. But you see, we've been studying for hours, and I'm scraping the bottom of my bucket, which is a mangled phrase.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel
is the phrase, but bucket also works, I guess.
Right. You can scrape the bottom of anything.
Larry's like, well, scrape a little deeper. And he tells Balky that nobody in their family has graduated at the top of the class. He goes, I came close. All I needed was a 96 on my geometry final, but Mr. Blanchard threw in a trick question, and I only got a 94. I came in second to that little tramp, Becky Jo Quinn. And now we have set up a couple of things here.
Okay, so that was like a very aggressive negative memory against Becky Jo Quinn.
Yes, a girl Larry went to high school with, Becky Jo Quinn. We will hear about her more throughout the episode. But
and
there's
Larry's
that word.
Obviously harboring this grudge since high school that she beat him out for valedictorian or whatever. But also, I'm not sure we could call women or girls tramps on television anymore these days.
I think that's one of the things that has changed. And it's funny to think about the word tramp because
means like hobo and stuff.
It means a couple of different things. It's one definition is someone who moves place to place on foot, like a vagrant or a beggar. So you have Disney's Lady and the Tramp. That's used in that way. They're kind of like homeless, right? But you have Frank Sinatra crooning famously. That's why the lady is a tramp.
That's true.
Calling ladies tramps.
But I think this kind of usage would be quite discouraged in scripts these days.
I was surprised they used it back then. It must be like riding the fine line of I don't know what
the definitions.
Yeah, I don't know what other word they could use to give off the same idea.
Yeah. All I know is when he first said this line in this episode, I was like, ooh, ouch.
Interesting.
Can you say that
choice
anymore?
Words.
So Balky's pleading with him to go to sleep. So Larry's all worked up. He's like, you must be first in class because I need to avenge Becky Jo Quinn or whatever for some reason. And he's getting all caught up in his own business. And Balky insists that he needs to get sleep. They're only 4 hours away from the final right now. So they must have been up pretty late. And he says, if I don't get some sleep, my brain is going to be worth Baba Sticky.
Balky's brain is Baba Sticky. And he tries to leave again. And again, Larry stops him. He goes, Balky, you don't understand. You could be the first in the family to be a valedictorian. And Balky's like, well, no, I don't think so, cousin. I enjoy eating meat so much.
This is funny. He confuses two long V words, vegetarian and valedictorian.
It can be easily
both
done.
End in Ian.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, easily done. I see how that could be confusing. Larry explains what a valedictorian is. It's the person who finishes first in the graduating class. And that person often gets to make a big speech at the graduation ceremony. And then Balky gets super excited. I could make a speech. And Larry's like, yes, absolutely. But all you need to do is get 100 on the final tomorrow. And then Balky says, but cousin, getting a perfect 100 on the history final is like swimming across Lake Mipos without getting a single leech.
Ew, what kind of swimming? Man, when they go to the beach in Mipos, you got to be careful. You're going to get bloodletted.
You have to be a very good and adept swimmer.
Well, you have to swim really fast to avoid the leeches. That's the situation.
Or you have to swim in a zigzag.
Yes, so the leeches can't get you. You can't just go in for a playful
to
dip.
throw off their aim.
There's no leisurely swimming on Mipos, I'll tell you that much. So Larry says, Balky, he pushes him down. He goes, anything worth doing is going to be hard. And he pushes Balky back into a sitting position on the couch. And then he goes, concentrate. And then he hits his own leg again with the ruler real hard. He goes, smack. And he goes, ow.
No, concentrate, smack.
And then he's back to quizzing him. He goes, 15th president. Balky goes, James
Buchanan.
He says James Buchanan.
And
then Larry goes, term.
1857 to 1861.
Wife's name.
He wasn't married.
Why not?
Who the heck knows? And he's like, I'm going to bed. I'm out. Now, that's funny because the rumor was that Buchanan was gay because he never married.
Was he the only non-married president we've had? I don't know. It's good trivia.
U.S. history buffs will know this.
Good trivia question.
So, yeah.
So Balky, a third time, is trying to go to bed, and Larry grabs him again.
We have a bit of like subtle, nice physical comedy here.
Yes, he goes, Balky, you have a chance to walk into that graduation valedictorian. Number one, numero uno. Are you going to get that little thing like sleep get in your way? And Balky goes, yes. Now, cousin, I'm sorry, but I am not studying anymore tonight, and that's that.
Oh, that's that, is it?
And Balky goes, that is exactly what that is. I'm not studying anymore tonight. My brain is exhausted, and besides, I know everything in the book. And Larry's like, oh, you know everything in the book?
Yes, I do.
You do?
I do.
You do?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Who was the president of the Confederacy? Larry asks, and then he like juts his head forward at Balky.
And Balky juts his face back to match.
He recoils.
And then they reverse. Yeah. Balky, as he answers, Jefferson Davis juts his face forward, and Larry juts his face back. It's a little dance back and forth.
And then Larry attacks again. Who was the vice president of the Confederacy with his head?
And then Balky pushes his head back. Alexander Stevens.
And then Balky has more answers. He shoves his face even forward. He goes, he was from Georgia.
He was from Georgia.
And Larry's like, oh. And then Balky goes, he weighed under 100 pounds. and Larry's like, oh, I didn't know that. Is that true? Alexander Stevens weighed under 100 pounds, a grown man who was president?
Let's check it out.
That's wild when he said that. I was like, what? How can you be even alive?
He was vice president of the Confederacy.
Oh, vice president, still.
Former governor of Georgia. Hold on. Did you know Alexander Stevens, vice president of the Confederacy during the American Civil War, suffered from numerous ailments during his lifetime and often weighed less than 100 pounds.
Oh, man.
His small size earned him the nickname Little Alec, which followed him throughout his career.
Oh, I'm sure he loved that. Hey, it's Little Alec. So what's going on, Little Alex?
He was 5'7", but only carried about 90 pounds.
Man, 5'7", that's very skinny. Yeah, that's very skinny.
Yeah, he was like
frame.
A stick.
Yikes. I imagine he had wouldn't it be funny if he had a deep voice and he's like, don't call me Little Alex. He's a still skinny guy walking around. Anyways, Larry hits him with the question that stumps him finally. He goes, who is the publisher of your history book? And Balky just goes, you're a sick man, cousin. And Larry's like, oh, you don't know, do you?
And at this point, Larry's like buggy-eyed, frantic again.
Yes, he is bugging out. He's like, well, it's the Warren Weber Company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And Balky's like, cousin, my teacher's not going to ask that, laughing it off. And Larry is full frantic. He goes, no, and I thought my teacher wasn't going to ask how many pages there were in the textbook. But he did. And the only person who knew the answer was that little tramp Becky Jo Quinn.
Again, we're calling her a tramp. And again, we find out that Larry has carried with him his whole life since high school this grudge against both Becky Jo Quinn and the teacher for asking this ridiculous question. And he remembers now how many pages were in that textbook. And he's just trying to... he's caught up in his own drama and grudge from before, but he's also just really trying to help Balky win this thing. He's like, you have to know all these random things, and I'm going to make sure you know it.
And then I love this bit where here's a little physical comedy. He goes, Balky, are you going to be Balky Bartokomous valedictorian? And takes a deep inhale and puffs up his chest, stands tall, proud chest. And Balky does the same thing. Or then he goes, or... a nobody, and then exhales and deflates and slumps down, and Balky does the same thing.
Rounds his shoulders.
It's so funny. Then he goes again, valedictorian, big puff up, and Balky does it, or a nobody, and they all deflate. And then, without saying it a third time, they both inflate. Take a deep breath, and then Balky goes, all right, cousin, let's go for the mold.
The mold.
Which is so funny.
Which is meant to be, let's go for the gold.
Let's go for the gold.
And of course, mold is nothing like gold, yes.
And you know what? Mold may be valuable in meepos. We don't know. That may be like a very special ingredient there. But Larry's like, that's the spirit.
And then they keep studying into the night. Then the scene fades to the next morning, and we don't know yet that it's morning, but it is. And Larry's sitting up on the couch. He's asleep. Balky's sprawled over the back of the couch.
Yeah, lengthwise on the edge of the top of the sofa. Precarious sleep. I don't know how he sleeps like that.
Larry wakes up and realizes that they have slept in. But he wakes up and first we kind of see him like sweetly wake up. Like he's just like, yawn, here I am. I woke up, and he's still kind of in his sleepy state. And then Mark Lynn-Baker does this so well when it hits him in his mind, like, oh, we slept in. Like he doesn't say anything. It's just his eyes.
Yeah, but when he's yawning, he knocks Balky off the edge of the sofa, landing with a thud right behind him. And that also wakes him up.
And then he says, Balky, what time is it? And then just we don't see Balky, just hear his voice from the floor behind the couch. He goes, it's howdy doody time. And this is such a random line, cute. But I laughed so hard at this.
I mean, it's the catchphrase from the classic NBC children's TV show, ran from 1947 to 1960, featuring a marionette puppet named Howdy Doody. And they'd be like, what time is it, kids? And they'd be like, it's Howdy Doody time.
The peanut gallery. That's where the peanut gallery is.
Oh, is that where that started? And Larry looks over the back, and we get a fantastic, oh, my Lord.
Oh, my Lord.
He goes, it's 10 o'clock. He reaches down, pulls Balky up by his hair. He goes, your history exam. It started an hour ago. And Balky's all sleepy. He goes, really? How am I doing? And then Larry jumps up, runs around to the back of the couch, and he picks up Balky in a fireman's carry over his shoulders and takes him to the door.
This part was so funny. It was so well done, this physical comedy.
And Larry's like, coats, get the coats.
And Balky grabs the coats from the door rack.
And then Larry goes, door, go over the door.
And then Balky reaches down from Larry's shoulders while he's being carried and opens the front door from the handle. And then Larry starts to charge through the door, holding Balky sideways across his shoulders. And then Balky, the whole audience at the same time, when you see that Balky's head is about to hit the wall because he's going horizontally through the door, Balky screams, ah! And he stops. And then Larry does this hilarious thing where he shifts sideways, like how a big muscle man has to enter a room. Shifts sideways and then side shuffles out the door.
I didn't remember them closing the door, but whatever. Leave the door open. It's fine. It's Chicago.
It was a very awkward fade to black. It wasn't a fade to black. It was like a cut to black act change, and it was very abrupt.
And that's the end of Act 1. Listener, if you want to know where there's a place where people love Perfect Strangers as much as we do, as much as you listening to, because you're listening to this, you obviously love Perfect Strangers. It's our Facebook group. There's a link in the show notes. Join it today. You get to meet all of the awesome regular listeners who comment every episode. I leave a thread there posting what episode we're recording that week, so you can leave your thoughts and observations, and we throw it in the show, and you're part of the show. Just like that. It's so easy, so fun.
Act 2. So the last thing we saw at the end of Act 1 is them running out, realizing the exam started an hour ago. Now we're at the history class final exam, and the teacher is writing the remaining time on the board for the exam, which is 20 minutes.
Oh, man.
Chalkboard.
There's only 20
and all
minutes
the students
left.
are there taking their tests in this high school classroom. And then we see Henry Fong.
Well,
the
the first thing is, it's weird. I get it. It's a technique to let the audience know that there's 20 minutes left in the test taking time. But is he getting up every minute to change the number? This is not very efficient.
Probably in large increments.
Why wouldn't you just be like,
if it was like
test ends at 10 a.m.?
So an hour and a half, right? Presumably it's an hour and a half or 2 hours because
2 hours.
They were an hour late.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I would say in 20-minute increments, and then toward the end, 5 minutes, and then...
It just seems weird that you do. That's how you let people know how much time is left.
But it was an easy tool to convey the information.
You're like, oh my God,
audience.
There's only 20 minutes left. And yes, an Asian student walks up to the teacher and hands him his paper. He says, Mr. Jones, I finished with the test. I think you'll enjoy it. This is Henry Fong. This is the Henry Fong we're talking about.
I will add, and I'm glad you didn't do it, but in the show it's in a heavy East Asian, overly caricatured accent, but played by an Asian actor.
Yes, played by an Asian actor. This is night school where, immigrants like Balky are coming to learn about America or get there. I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, Balky's accent is also overly caricaturized. And he's one of the leads of the show.
Yes.
So it's kind of what this show deals in.
So Mr. Jones takes the paper, looks at it, and he goes, "Oh, Mr. Fong, you didn't answer the extra credit question. It's worth 5 points." And Henry Fong is all confident. He's like, "Oh, I don't need it." And then the teacher is like, "Don't know it, huh?" And Henry Fong goes, that too. As he walks out the door. But I guarantee that guy doesn't actually talk like that with that accent.
No. And that's all we see, speaking lines with Henry Fong. Yeah. That's it. And it's such a shame that we don't have we can't find his name or who he was, but Henry Fong.
Listen, at least they got an Asian actor to play the role. The Pakistani, who do we have?
Yeah, there was some discussion in our group. About whether this is like how wrong this would be today. And, I get it. Yeah, it's an overly caricature accent and no one likes that. Asian actors don't like that. And any kind of Asian actors don't like that, or Arabs or South Asians, whatever. But this whole show, like Balki's accent is that way too. It's, like this fictional Mediterranean type accent, fictional Mediterranean country. So he's doing this like Greek-like accent and it's over the top. And it's over exaggerated, but at this point, we're at the end of season 3. We're like used to it. Henry Fong, yes, it would be problematic today to have that accent, but you made a good point. It is a night school class full of immigrants and other types like that. And 2, my first reaction was at least they had an Asian actor playing the Asian immigrant,
right?
Whereas, and that was for the default Asians. Where in 1988, the default Asians already had Asian actors to play their roles. I say default because not our kind of Asians, the South Asians.
What did brown people have in the 80s?
In the 80s, brown Asians had white people doing terrible accents.
You had Fisher Stevens in Short Circuit, who many Indian people thought was actually Indian Pakistani for many years. I thought he was actually Pakistani.
We thought he was when we were kids.
Like, wait a minute, Fisher Stevens? That doesn't sound like a Pakistani name. It was a great movie, and so points, I guess, for Perfect Strangers. Anyways.
But what happened to Fisher Stevens?
Fisher Stevens actually did a lot of research into the Eastern Pakistani Indian culture. He speaks Urdu in the movie, which is something that's why I love that movie, because right away I was like, oh my God, he spoke Urdu, so we thought he was Pakistani. He thought,
for listeners who are a little confused, my brother and I, your co-hosts of the show, we are of Pakistani heritage. And I'll tell you what, in the 80s, that movie was 86, right?
Yeah.
In 1986, to hear a character on television speaking this language that you have around the house was like mind blown.
It blew me away.
It was phenomenal.
So, turns out he thought this was going to be like a seriously traditional, respectful role. He did all this research. I think he might have went to India. I don't know. He wanted to be respectful. And then after he made the movie, he felt really bad that he just ended up kind of playing a stereotypical and whitewashed character of a thing. But you had Ben Kingsley.
And if that guy is Fisher Stevens is still around. Oh, Ben Kingsley played Gandhi. You're absolutely right.
He was amazing, though. You would have thought he was Indian.
He was.
He nailed it. Like, I can't fault anybody for that. I don't know why. You could have hired any Bollywood actor. Sure, there's hundreds of them. But Ben Kingsley, I thought he was Indian.
Right.
Like, he was so good. He was so good.
So anyway, the conclusion is, yes, Henry, the accent, overdone accent is problematic. It would still be today, but a couple of points for having an actual Asian actor playing Asian. The best situation they could have done is had an Asian actor play an Asian character and like made the accent a little more subtle or not at all. But if it was meant to be a foreign student, then
they were way anyway. Yeah, it was too. It wasn't progressive enough for that. Which now that's what happens. It's great. Anyways, look, you got 20 minutes left for this test. Balki hasn't even started taking it.
So Henry gives his paper in and leaves, and then just as he's leaving, we see Larry and Balki rushing into, and they bump into him. There's a bit of physical comedy. They get turned around. They're like, Larry's panicked and frantic at this point. Balki's half asleep. And Larry runs in, but like forgets Balki in the hallway in the mix up with Henry Fong, and the door closes. So it's just Larry running in and looking frantic around this classroom where everyone's taking this test. He goes and gets Balki, and we see Balki with like a bloody nose and disheveled. And he says to Mr. Jones, I can explain why I'm late. He tells him how he was up all night studying, then he fell asleep, and then he didn't wake up. And then Cousin Larry woke him up, and he's like, I didn't really wake up until he was carrying me down the stairs, knocking my head against the banister with each step. That explains his bloody nose. And he says, just between you and me, it's a lucky thing I don't have a percussion.
That's good. That's pretty good. Instead of a concussion.
And Larry asked the teacher if Balky can still take the test, and he says, okay, but he only has 20 minutes left. He has to finish it. I don't know why the rules were so rigid, but he has to finish it within the 20 minutes that are remaining.
Balky's like, 20 minutes? It would take me 20 minutes just to read this. And Larry's like, don't read it. Go on instinct. And he pushes Balky, spins him into the seat. And it's those old-timey school desks where the table is attached to the chair, you know. Left-handed people hate these desks because the table. So you know what I would do? I would grab another one and pull it over so that I had a left-handed thing. Yeah, because it was annoying. It's made for right-handed people. It's very discriminatory.
Yeah.
Anyways, Larry grabs Balky's head. Guys, because he's looking down, he's starting to do the test. He grabs his head and pulls it back. He goes, listen to me. You can do it. And then Balky looks down to start the test. And then Larry pulls his head up again by the back of his head. He goes, you know the answers. And then Balky goes back to the test. And then Larry, a third time, pulls his head, always in thirds, pulls his head back. He goes, but you're going to have to work fast, very fast.
Oh, my gosh.
And then suddenly the teacher goes, ahem, he also has to work alone. And Larry's like, oh, yeah.
Larry just cares so much. It's nice.
And a great stumbly comedic exit as he turns around, trips over one of the chairs, and ends up with his foot in the garbage can, and he's clumping out the classroom.
The old get your foot stuck in the trash can.
In the trash can. Very classic physical comedy.
Classic. And it's still so funny. I laughed out loud just at this part.
I was like, Larry, they're trying to take a test, Larry. You're making all this noise.
Stop being a pest, Larry.
Jeez.
Okay, so fast forward a little bit. Apparently, Balky made it. He finished the test in the 20 minutes. And the next scene is still in the classroom, and all the students have gone. And Larry's outside the door, like watching, like a nervous, like anticipating, like a nervous father or something. And Mr. Jones is at his desk grading the paper, and Balky's like hovering over him, standing and looking over his shoulder.
Like right over him. And it's very annoying.
Yeah.
Annoying looking.
And then Balky's like watching him, and we have this funny little line. He says, oh, good. The 7th president was Andrew Jackson. I couldn't think whether it was Andrew or Jermaine.
Yes.
Referring, of course, to Jermaine Jackson of the famous Jackson 5.
A Jackson 5 joke. Absolutely.
Love it. Yes. Love it. This is all of our favorite things combined Jermaine as kids Jackson. Right here.
Nobody liked Jermaine Jackson.
I know, but Tito was hot.
Jermaine had a bunch of albums. Nobody bought them. So the teacher goes, Balky, I have to turn these papers in by noon. Yeah. And Balky's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And he turns away for a second and then immediately just turns back, goes back over his shoulder, leans in again.
And he finishes grading it. And guess what? He congratulates Balky. Balky got 100.
Oh, my
And then
Lord.
we hear Larry in the hallway going, yes, yes.
Like through the door, muffled. It's hilarious.
And Balky's like, I did it. And he runs over, lets Larry into the room. And here we have, for the first time in a long while,
the dance of joy. And he goes, cousin, now we so you know what? Let's just hear it.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey.
Yeah, Mr. Jones is watching them and smiling.
Mr. Jones just watches them, but it's like a very joyous moment because we haven't seen it in so many episodes at this point, and it's truly like a joyful moment.
And then Mr. Jones goes, well, you should be happy, Balky. Finishing second in the class is quite an accomplishment. What? What just happened?
What?
Balky goes, second? Larry goes, what do you mean second? And he goes, we got 100. We're number one. We're number one. As he rushes the desk. And then the teacher just goes,
Larry's so invested.
Mr. Jones is like, I don't know what you are, but Balky finished second in the class. Henry Fong also got 100 on the test, and his overall average is 1 point higher than Balky's.
That tramp Henry Fong. See, he doesn't call Henry Fong a tramp. That's why it's problematic.
He should.
Only Becky Joe, not Henry Fong.
And then Balky's sad. He goes, oh, cousin, I'm so sorry. I did the best I could. I only got 100. And Larry's like, well, 100 is nothing to be ashamed of. But he is disappointed, and he only got 100.
That's just funny, the irony in those
Yes.
lines, because that's what like parents
I'm
would tell
sorry.
kids about
Yeah.
like a 85 or a 90 or
This is like
95.
every Indian kid's report card
Yeah.
day. I'm sorry, Mom, I only got an A. Where's the plus?
Yeah, and if every immigrant parent would be like, "Oh, you got a 98%? Where's the other 2%?" But Larry's channeling what like an American parent would say. 98 is nothing to be ashamed of, even though Balky got 100. So they are like kind of sad, and they kind of accept it for like half a second, and they start to leave. And then Mr. Jones is like, "Wait, you didn't answer the extra credit question." And Balky says he didn't see one.
Whoa.
He must have missed it because he was rushing. He only had 20 minutes. And the teacher said, well, he gave Henry a chance, so he will also give Balky a chance to answer it. But he warns him. He says it's kind of a trick question. And Larry's like, naturally. And there's his grudge again against
Naturally?
whatever teacher he had that threw him that page number question. And this is like the exposition that sets up the situation. The teacher says, if you get it right, you will be number one in the class because you only won. Henry Fong is only 1 point ahead of you. And then he says, okay, now, who was the publisher of our history book? And then Larry has that
He
wide-eyed,
turns and looks at him.
like I've light bulb moment face.
He looks like a
oh,
turtle
we know
sometimes
this.
when his eyes
Yes.
bug out with his pointy face. He looks
His
like
eyes bug out,
like a
and he
lizard
like focuses his face on Balky, and he juts out his chin.
Bucky, you know this, he says. And Bucky's like, oh, cousin. Oh, wait a minute. He goes, I see it. It's right on the tip of my brain.
Tip of my...
Which is a little
he means
mangled.
to say on the tip of his tongue. That's
But
the
brain
saying. But I
again.
like tip of my
Yes.
brain.
Brain also
makes a lot
works.
more sense.
Yes, where the thought is going
Because
to
your
start.
brain is telling what
Yeah.
your mouth,
He's like, it's coming closer.
telling your tongue what to say.
He's, I see it. He goes, it's gone. Then he lost it.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's pause here for a second. I thought we had previously learned that Balky has a pornographic memory.
That's a good point.
Remember
The
when he
memo.
remembered every memo in the
Just
mailroom
by
that he ever
glancing
looked at?
Yeah. Well, sometimes things are
Where
buried.
is it now? Maybe it's under pressure. He doesn't have it.
It is. It's under pressure. And Mr. Jones goes, that's okay. Don't feel bad. Nobody's ever gotten one of my extra credit questions. And they start to walk away disappointed. And Bucky's like, I'm sorry, cousin. I let you down. I should have remembered that it's the Warren Weber Company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then they both stop. They both stop in shock. And Bucky turns back and looks at Mr. Jones and goes, the Warren Weber Company of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then Larry's like, he said it. He said it in your face, Becky Jo Quinn, as he steps in the middle of the room. And Mr. Jones stands up and offers his hand and says, congratulations, Balky. That means you graduate with the highest average in the class. Balky shakes his hand and says, oh, thank you, Mr. Jones. I'm going to be so proud when I get up in front of everybody to make my speech. He goes, come, cousin, I want to go buy an underarm deodorant that won't fail me.
That won't fail
As they start to walk
so here we are. Larry is rejoicing. He's got it, whatever vengeance he wanted on Becky Jo Quinn.
in your face.
Balky's feeling pretty good that he not only did he ace the exam, but he I don't think Balky cares one way or another, but about beating Henry Fong, but he does care about because presumably Larry has hyped him up about what a valedictorian
He's
is.
filled
and
him
the
with
speech,
these
his graduation.
ideas
He's
and
very
things.
excited about. So they're happy and they start to leave, and then Mr.
Everything's
Jones
great.
stops them
Uh-oh.
and lets him know that there is no speech because there is no graduation ceremony because it's night school. And Balky's like, there's no graduation ceremony, so I make my speech at the prom before all the promming starts. I love that because I'm
promming.
wondering what Balky understands
What
a
is
prom to
promming?
be and what is promming. And then Mr. Jones actually tells him that there's also no prom and there's also no class picture. Larry's like, no graduation, no prom, no class picture. What is this, Russia?
Oh, dig it, Russia.
Ouch. That's kind of a sharp burn, too.
It was the Cold War, though. This is perfectly
That's true.
topical.
This is what we thought about Russia in the 80s.
And Mr. Jones just goes, it's night school. You'll get your diploma in the mail. It's a school policy. And Larry's like, well, the policy stinks. And Bucky's like, it's okay, cousin. It's all right. And he offers his hand again, shake Mr. Jones' hand. And he goes, Mr. Jones, I really enjoyed having you as a teacher. Thank you very much. And Mr. Jones is like, goodbye, Balky. Good luck. And they turn to leave. And Larry's like, I'm so sorry, Balky, for filling your head with these ideas because I thought everybody had a graduation. And Balky's like, no, cousin, it's all right. And then he's almost at tears here.
You can see he's emotional. He's really hurt. I feel like Larry built it up so much for him as this like classic American rite of passage.
Stupid Larry. Why'd you have to tell him all these things?
And how special it is and how he's going to be not only is he valedictorian, but he's the first one in Larry's
family.
Part of the family, at least.
Larry could have found out, though, the policy before filling his head with all these ideas. So Balky goes, cousin, if it's okay with you, I'm going to walk home alone. I just want to be alone, as he starts to cry, and it's really sad.
Which is a nice line to both convey the emotions that he's feeling and also to get him out of the scene. Yes. Because once he leaves, Larry shifts. This is the shift that some of our listeners noticed as well. Shifts from what he wanted. Like the characters, it's all about what they want, right? Their objectives. So up until now, what Larry wanted was to get vengeance on Becky Jo Quinn and to have a valedictorian in the family kind of overlapping.
He got that.
But now he shifts because he, in this moment, very quickly realizes what an injustice this is, that night school students don't get graduation. And he really wants to right this wrong. And he gives this speech and he tells the teacher, it's not fair. They all deserve a graduation. Night school students work harder than anyone to get their diplomas. They didn't do it the easy way like you and I did, living at home, going to school during the day, having all night to do homework. No. They have to go to classes in the evening because they have jobs during the day. They study whenever they can find time, on the bus, on the way to work, on weekends. And what do they get from you? You'll get your diploma in the mail. Can you spare the postage? Which the way he delivered that reminded me of, can you afford it?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. But this makes sense.
Yeah. And so Mr. Jones tries to explain a little bit, and Larry cuts him off with more of his speech. He says, hear me out. These people earn their diplomas. If anyone deserves a graduation, they do. He said, my summer camp had a graduation. Even dog obedience school has a graduation. All they have to do is learn to go on the paper. And then he really hits hard. He says, if you have any decency, any compassion, any sense of justice, you will see that these people get their own graduation ceremony. And the crowd goes wild.
Good for you.
It is a very good speech.
It's like the most unselfish thing he's done so far in this whole show.
Yes, that's a very good point, too. The most unselfish thing, and making very logical, very good points. He's even moved Mr. Jones. Like, it all made sense. There's nothing to argue about this.
I love this next bit because Mr. Jones takes it in and he's listened to the whole thing and he's got these papers in his hand. He goes, that was very moving. But I don't work here anymore. After I turn these papers in, I'm finished for the semester. And so what does Larry do? He goes to his groveling mode, which is what all he has left after that impassioned speech. And he's just like, oh, come on. Can you do something? Just whining.
And so Mr. Jones agrees. He says, okay, well, I guess we can go talk to the principal. And Larry is very appreciative of that. Thank you. And he says, and try not to grovel. She'll eat you alive. The principal is like a sharp woman, which I feel like is a cheap joke here, too. This is also another joke that might not have made it in the script today, because the underlying assumption here is when he says, we can go talk to the principal, that everyone will. This is a classic like twist based on people's biases, right? Everyone will understand that word, the principal, to be a man.
Yeah.
So there comes the joke at the end. The last line, she'll eat you alive. Like that classic riddle about the man who gets in a accident with his son. And the man dies, and he takes this, and the son, the ambulance takes the son to the ER, and the surgeon comes in and says, I can't operate on this boy. He's my son.
He's my son.
And everyone's like, what? How can that be? The father died.
Women can't be doctors.
And no one thinks that the doctor can be the mother.
Right.
Anyway, so that's like this old playing on people's biases, and I don't know if we would write this joke anymore because now everyone is super aware about things like this, the gender biases.
Will Balky get his graduation ceremony? We're going to find out in Act 3, But I want to let the listener know, if you've been enjoying the show every week, make sure you support the show. Visit our website. You can buy us a virtual coffee. Visit danceofjoypod.com/support. And it's a way to give back, to donate, to support the show. Helps us keep making the show
going. Listen, we have committed, my brother and I have committed to 150 episodes of this podcast, and we have to make it through, and every little bit of support will help us get there.
We love everyone who's supported us so far, and we're almost coming up to a year, sister. Very quickly, we're going to have a 1 year anniversary. Yes.
That flew by. You're so right. Yeah, it's not far from here.
We get through the first year.
We'll come back to that.
We'll be like a third of the way through. But for now, we are only 2/3 of the way through this episode.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's right. Act 3 begins at the apartment, where this is something that's interesting.
This is a classic
I want to talk about this.
silly gag, too.
But, okay, so we see Larry sitting at the counter attempting to dunk a cookie into a mug of milk, and he dunks it, and it's soggy, and just as he's about to eat it, it breaks off and drops into the drink, and he throws down the cookie in frustration. But this is supposed to be a running gag. I don't feel like
Have we seen it before?
No, I don't know. Does it become a running gag?
Well, we'll see if it comes around again. We haven't seen it before, but I just laughed at it because I thought it was like a classic, something everyone can relate to. And the way that he gets frustrated and tosses the cookie implies that he's been sitting there for a while trying to get this cookie, and he's lost other. Like maybe this is the 5th cookie he's tried.
How many cookies has he wasted in the mushy milk?
So, so much is conveyed in like 30 seconds of acting, right? Without any dialogue.
And it's like typical Larry.
That's what it felt like
luck
to me.
Yeah, and you get to see Larry's
typical Larry
luck.
Like he always loses his cookie, or maybe he's been sitting there for a while with other. How many cookies has he? And like re-poured the milk every time, and now he's like, because at the beginning he's like, now this is the one I'm gonna get. That's where we enter the scene, and
you know what it reminds me of?
And he just like tosses the cookie all over the place.
It reminds me of that scene in The Simpsons where Homer where they have the puppy litter, and Homer's trying to eat potato chips, and each time he pulls one up, a dog comes and eats it. And he goes, boop, and then he's like, this time, boop, no, this one, boop. And he keeps pulling out another one, and the dog just keeps, and then he's like, I'm gonna this time, boop, and another one comes. I don't know why.
So I don't know if we'll see if this comes around again. It's not a running joke just yet, but I could see it. It's it's a funny idea for a running gag.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was like a very relatable classic gag, and they put in there. Everyone.
It's all about the timing and the density of the cookie. Yeah, they all different times. That's all. You got to count it.
How long you dip it.
Right, the timing of the dip. That's the important part.
And, okay, so that was the opening little gag. It's cute. I liked it. I don't have a problem with that opening gag. It was good. Balky comes home. So this is Larry being home before Balky finished his walk home, which must have been quite a long walk because Larry had gone to talk to the principal and sort it all out.
Oh, yeah.
And still got home before Balky did.
We find out how long he's been walking around. Balky tells us.
Yeah, so Balky comes home and they both tell each other, I have to talk to you. And Larry says, me first. And he starts to talk. I spoke to Mr. Jones, and Balky keeps cutting him off. Now, this is a reversal of what we typically have, where Balky tries to explain something important, some important information, and Larry keeps cutting him off with his own, angst and monologue. Now it's reversed. Larry's like, I spoke to Mr. Jones and Balky says, cousin, please, look, and he keeps cutting him off. And we find out that he's been walking around the city for 2 hours, the Windy City, meaning Chicago, of course. He's been walking around for 2 hours feeling sorry for himself. And just before my lips were chapped beyond recognition, so it must be in the winter time, too.
Yeah, it's cold.
He says, he had a realization. He said to himself, Balky, what the matter with you is, which is just a funny reorganization of what is the matter with you. And then his realization is that not only did he graduate from high school, but because of Larry, thanks to Larry, he graduated number 1 in his class. And Larry again tries to cut in to tell him the good news, and Balky again cuts him off and keeps going on with what's in his monologue in his head. He says, and that should be enough. I mean, let's be real. I didn't even know about what a graduation ceremony is or about any speeches or about prom until Larry told him, right? He didn't know anything. So why should he feel now like my heart has been torn out by the roots? That's another one. That should be hair torn out by the roots.
Oh.
I think that's the expression. You're tearing your hair out by the roots or tearing something. But his point is he's a high school graduate, and that's huge. And he's a high school graduate. He can cope with a little bit of disappointment.
Yeah, but I think he's really just trying to justify
trying to cover it. He's trying to mask it.
He's totally trying to mask it because Larry was about to tell him some good news, but then he goes, "You mean you really don't care whether you have a graduation ceremony or not?"
Now.
Yeah, now you're being mean. And Balky's like, "Oh, Costin, I'm past that." And giving the and then Larry goes, "And giving the valedictory speech means nothing anymore?" And Balky's like, "Costin, this is a mature adult Balky you're talking to." And Larry goes, "So if I told you that Mr. Jones and I spoke to your principal and your class is going to have a graduation ceremony, you would say..." And Balky yells.
Balky goes, "Cowabunga!
Cowabunga,
Enjoy!"
dude.
And he reaches down and he puts Larry on his shoulders.
Kind of like a fireman's carry.
Like a fireman's carry, kind of. And then he spins. So Larry's horizontal across his shoulders. And Mark Lynn-Baker is doing a very good, as we've seen him do before, like stiff body so that it looks like a T. And Balky spins around in circles, and you just see Larry spinning over his shoulders.
He's spinning
and he's
really
screaming,
fast,
"This
too.
is the happiest!" Yeah, really fast. And he's screaming in joy, "This is the happiest day of my life, and you did it! You did it!" And then Larry's like, "Balky, if you don't put me down, there's something else I'm going to do." As in vomit.
You want to talk about the reaction? That word "cowabunga" I find it's an interesting choice.
Cowabunga later on, after this episode, becomes quite a part of our cultural space for a while because of Bart Simpson. But we didn't have Bart Simpson at this point, so there was another pop culture reference
that brought it. There's a bunch of references happening at the same time here. I believe cowabunga originally starting as a surfer phrase out, probably from the surfers out west. They would say cowabunga.
Right.
Now, in 1986, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 87 or 88, their cartoon started, and they had turned these gritty, like in the comics, it was black and white gritty Ninja Turtles, and they turned them kind of into a little more kid-friendly, and Michelangelo would say cowabunga. Cowabunga, popularized, here's a full circle tie-in reference, popularized by Chief Thunder Thud on the American children's show Howdy Doody in the late 1940s or early 1950s. So the phrase cowabunga
Two Howdy
also
Doody
came
references.
from Howdy Doody. That's wild.
One
okay,
episode.
So Teenage Mutant Ninja
That's
Turtles.
a deep cut.
Howdy Doody, cowabunga.
That is so intricate. I love it.
So anyways, Balky was spinning Larry. He puts him down, and Larry's a little shaky. And Balky goes, "Cousin, I'm sorry. I'm just so happy I get to have a graduation ceremony. And I get to give a speech. I hope my lips heal in time," he says from walking outside. He goes, "I can't believe this. How could I ever thank you?" And Larry's like, "Just give a great speech. If you need any help, you can always use the one I wrote but never got to use because of that little tramp, Becky Jo Quinn." And then
Oh my God, Larry, enough.
And now Balky puts his hand on Larry's shoulder. He goes, "Cousin, you are going to have to let that go."
Yeah, exactly. Enough, Larry. Like, Balky's not bothered about Henry Fong's not bothered, or maybe he is. Also, I think about Henry Fong. Henry Fong's parents must be so disappointed.
Yeah, he got beat out
because he got 100, but he didn't get the extra credit, and he missed it by 1 point.
What's the matter, Henry? You got 100 and you still came in second. Why aren't you giving the speech?
Henry Fong's parents disowned him.
They were in the back. Yeah, they're in the back of his graduation, just with sour faces, giving Balky a mean look. So, speaking of the graduation, the scene cuts to the next night at Balky's school.
Yes, and the classroom, the very same classroom, has the desks are replaced with some rows of folding chairs. There's a little podium. There's a little table with scrolls of paper that are, with ribbons that are the diplomas.
Everybody is there.
Everybody's waiting. The audience is there. And here we have Balky's supporters who are Jennifer, Marianne, Lydia, and Harriet are all there. They're all dressed up. They're all very excited about this. And Lydia's like, "This graduation brings back memories. I was voted most likely to succeed." And then we have a Harriet quip back, further enforcing their quippy dynamic. Harriet's like, well, we all have our little disappointments, as in Lydia didn't actually succeed, but that's all up for interpretation. And then Jennifer lets us know that Larry has arranged all this for Balky and his classmates, and what a sweet guy he is. And everyone's very excited, and we know that Balky's graduating first in the class. Anyway, then Larry and Mr. Jones enter the room, and Mr. Jones is like in a rush. He's like, we got to move this along. Traffic school meets here in an hour. So we're seeing like they've done everything they can. It's still a night school graduation, but at least they're trying, right?
And
so
Larry has a boombox with him.
He's got a very 80s boombox, just like that sits in his lap, cassette tape, double cassette deck or something. Anyway, he sits down. He gets everyone to take their seats. Mr. Jones stands at the front. Larry presses play, and we hear Pomp and Circumstance, the classic graduation
song.
And the night school students enter, Balky in the lead because Bartokomous is B.
They're wearing gowns and hats. And
they've managed to pull this off. They got them caps and gowns.
This is a proper graduation ceremony that he's pulled off. It's really
so nice.
Yeah.
And they file in. They take their seats. And Balky's got like the first in class, like whatever sash or cords around his neck. So this is like a real deal.
Yeah.
And they take their seats in the front of the classroom. And here we get like a nice little Marianne moment.
Yeah.
Not really clarity, but it's just a moment. We get this nice little Marianne moment. She says, what a coincidence. Pomp and Circumstance is still playing. She says, what a coincidence. They played that at my graduation too. Marianne, they play that at all the graduations. And there's the joke. So Larry presses stop on the boombox, and Mr. Jones gets right into it. No fluff. He thanks everyone for coming. And then he's like, now let's hear, before we do the diplomas, we'll hear from the valedictorian. And he brings on Balky Bartokomous.
Here we have, similar to last episode, Bye Bye Beaky, there's a big emotional monologue given just by Balky, like 2 episodes in a row. It's very interesting.
In a row.
Right? And so, again, I think we should just play. He gives this very impassioned.
Balky's just particularly like wise and reflective these days.
Yes, he is. He plays his graduation speech, and we'll hear it from Balky himself here.
You know, just a short while ago, I was tending sheep on the hillsides of Mipos, and my only possessions were the birdwood staff that my grandfather gave me, and my heavy wool blanket to keep out the cold, and of course my Sony Walkman. I didn't even know what a valedictorian was, and now I am one. I keep thinking any minute somebody's going to walk through the door and say, hey, you, what do you think you're doing? You think you really get to live in this nice place and have a nice job and have wonderful friends and get an education? Get real, farm boy. But it is real. I live in America. I have a job. I get to pay taxes. I even have a Visa card with a $200 limit. And in just a minute, I'm going to have a high school diploma. That's really something special. I think that my fellow graduates and I are going to make you very proud. We have a big curiosity to learn things and a big feeling of how lucky we are to live in America, and a big wish that we can make America as happy as America makes us. That's all that's in there. I'm finished now.
I love this speech so much because it truly encapsulates, like, on the one hand, there's this immigrant struggle, right? Like, look, he and his classmates have to work all day, study at night. Like, it's harder for them. As Larry so aptly pointed out, it's harder for them. It's a struggle. Nothing is easy in this country, but he's also telling us like about America as a land of opportunities, right?
That he's able to do it.
He never could have imagined. He was just a farm boy. He didn't go to high school where he came from, and now he has a job. He's part of the society. He's paying taxes.
That part's funny.
He's like proud of his responsibilities.
Well, they get
he
to
has
contribute
an education.
to the country, and I love where he's like, "We'll make America as happy as it's made us. Time
America
to give back."
makes us.
The melting pot nature of the country that everybody loves. There's so much in that little speech. It's so great.
So well done. Yeah, well written. Bravo, writers.
They applaud, and Mr. Jones gives Balky his diploma and shakes his hand like you would do on stage when you got your diploma, and you got to have the experience.
Bravo, writers, and bravo, Bronson Pinchot, too, for the delivery of this monologue. I mean, for everything always, but the delivery of this was so
heartfelt
like
and sincere.
so heartfelt and so emotional, and you like are just there with Balky. You forget that it's like an actual American playing this role.
Right? It's amazing. So it cuts to later, and we're back in the building, and we see Larry and Balky in the hallway outside their apartment, and Balky's carrying his cap and his gown and diploma. And he goes, "Cousin, I don't understand. That school is only a mile from here. We've been driving around for an hour." And Larry's like, he's unlocking the door. He goes, "Balky, it's tradition. You graduate and you drive to Evanston. Everybody does it." Which, if you're from Chicago, you don't know how true.
Is that true?
It's kind of true. Like you will go.
Why do you drive to Evanston? Well, I don't know. Both my high school and college graduation were actually in Evanston, so we wouldn't have driven to Evanston after, because our high school graduation was in Evanston, right?
Yes, it was, and it reminded me of going to your graduation in Evanston, and just like it's like a fancy place to go to get ice cream, and you drive the Sheridan Drive.
Back then, for sure. Yeah, it was nice. It was just outside the city. You drive a little bit. It's on the lake. It's got like a lake front.
It's on the lake the whole time, and it's just this. It's a old kind of old. It seems like an old European city at times.
It was nice to hear this reference,
Evanston,
though.
yes,
it felt homey. You're like, oh, of course.
You do drive to Evanston. Just if you're bored, you're like, let's drive to Evanston. But I thought that was hilarious. But clearly he's stalling. But yeah, no, I think this is a tradition. You drive up to Evanston to your favorite. There's like restaurants. Yeah.
Well, in '86 there weren't. Now it's a super developed neighborhood.
Well, I used to hang out at Evanston in high school in the cafes because we thought we were cool. Like that was the cool place to hang out.
Yeah.
With the Evanston
Buffalo Joe's.
Yeah, all the cafes. But yeah.
But Larry's this was all a ploy to stall a little bit and get some time for the surprise that's waiting inside the apartment. He opens the door, and Balky looks around. We see a close up on Balky's face. He looks around and he's shocked and he's speechless. Then we pan out and we see the living room is kind of decorated to be something like a prom.
Oh my God.
And the furniture is moved out of the way, and all his classmates and other friends and people are there. There's like
lights.
Sparkly. There's like a mirror ball. There's music playing. There's banners and streamers.
There's the music. The music is a theme from A Summer Place. Percy Faith. But it's that song you always hear at proms and sock hops.
Yes. At least in television and movies.
Oh my God.
And then there's a banner that says, yes. It was such a nice surprise. And then there's a banner so like Larry not only organized the graduation ceremony, but he organized the surprise prom party afterward. There's a banner that says, "Congratulations, night school grads," on the wall. And Balky is just moved, and he's like in such surprise and shock. And Larry just very like sweetly says, "Welcome to your prom." And they hug. God. And Balky is wearing that, what do we call it? Opening ceremony. Is that the one with the tassels? This one looks a little different. It has white on the back.
Oh yeah, this is a
white
different
patterns.
one. It's got some
not
white
fully
embroidery,
black and gold,
but there's gold and black and white.
Yeah.
Can I just tell you, when they opened the door and they revealed that, I was like, "Oh my God, Larry Appleton! Look at you made him prom.
He's done well."
And Marianne and Jennifer had dressed up, and Harriet's all dressed up, and it was just so nice and unexpected.
They're all there. Can we talk
really
for a minute about the prom dresses?
Sure.
I thought that Mary Ann's was quite classy and could still pass. Today it's a little flowy at the bottom, but it's not like gaudy 80s. It was like, actually Mary Ann's was nice, and you could still wear that today. Jennifer's dress in this scene is ridiculous. I mean, I know it was 1988,
shoulderless
but
number.
It is like bright hot pink,
Yeah.
and it's like tight through the torso
Right.
and like just below the hips, and
Yep,
then it flares out
Yes, it does.
dramatically,
Yes.
but it's a short skirt, so it's just kind of going out
Yeah.
very horizontally, and it's like well above her knees, and it's just I don't know. I think even in the 80s that would have been a ridiculous dress, but maybe not. But Marianne's is nice.
Now, Jennifer's dress throws a very interesting silhouette. You know, it's like if you're drawing just the
Yeah.
outline, you're like, wait,
It's
what
just
happened
ridiculous.
here? Where it flares out
It's
all of a
just
sudden.
ridiculous.
What is going
If we
on?
want to get really crazy with our spin-off Instagram accounts for this podcast,
Oh, no.
we should have
Are you gonna
Balky does, we
suggest
have
that
Larry does.
Jennifer
Dare I
does?
speak this into existence, because we
Oh,
have a history of
no.
saying things on this show and then Instagram accounts pop up, which is amazing and great. Let's see if we can get this one to happen. What if there was a Jennifer and Marianne
Yeah, you have to
Instagram
do
about
both.
their
Oh,
hairstyles and their outfits?
So the girls.
And you could even toss in Lydia and Harriet, but their outfits aren't as ridiculous.
No, the girls you could do in one Instagram account, the Jennifer and Marianne Duds or whatever.
Jennifer and
Yeah.
Marianne. It could be about their apartment,
Yeah.
right? Like we
Their
always talk about the
jobs.
wallpaper and that
Yeah.
pattern, their
Yeah.
jobs, their hair, Marianne's like lines.
Oh, somebody's going to have to make this. Marianne, moments of clarity.
Definitely their clothes, because we have now commented on their outfits enough times
Yeah.
and their hair that all right, this is our experiment. We have spoken it.
Let's
on
see
the
if it happens.
podcast. Let's see how long. Start the timer now. We'll see how long until the next Instagram account pops up. Okay. So back in the scene, it's very sweet. Balky's touched, they're hugging. It's very warm, a loving, caring scene between Balky and Larry. And then the music's playing, that lovely song theme from A Summer Place. Marianne asks Balky to dance, and they sort of kick off the dance in the middle of the room, slow dance. And then Larry and Jennifer join them, and then other couples slowly join them. And then we get this thing that we've seen before, particularly at the end of emotional episodes, like somber ending episodes, where the camera pans out and goes through the window, and we see the end shot is an external from outside the window looking into the apartment. And we've seen that before, like where the fireplace was on, where like Larry's emotional at the end, and a couple other instances.
Roll credits. Yeah, that's how you know it's an emotional episode, when they pull back through the fireplace and the window. Listener, before we dig into this episode, you must know you can get some cool podcast swag, some merch at our TeePublic shop, danceofjoypod.com/shop. Get the lovely logo, a different color t-shirts and hoodies, and other items like bags, face masks, mugs. Go there. It's just another way to support the show. If you get something, want to see it, send us a photo. We'll shout you out. Now, Sophia, this in the group, this episode had a kind of a split reaction from our
there were
listeners
factions
and our cousins in our Facebook group.
in our Facebook group, cousins.
The sides are simple. People who liked the episode, people who didn't think the episode was great. That's what it's going to break down to. Where do we land on this? What side?
I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Was it one of the more memorable ones, the classic ones? No, but I don't mind it at all. It's it was nice. It was nice. You know, it was like we understand more about the American dream, which was, I think, particularly important then and even now for people who haven't lived that experience, what it's like to come and like have all these opportunities for the first time and what that means. I think also it's this rare time where we see Larry being completely selfless.
Yeah, that's
he
important.
starts out selfish with this grunge and this like need for revenge for somehow. I don't know how it would vindicate him, but that's what was his selfish start. And then it flips and it turns into like, I must right this wrong and do right by Balky and all his classmates who have been working so hard and deserve something nice. And then then it's just like so sweet and touching all that he goes through. He makes the whole ceremony. He invites people.
Yeah.
He gets them diplomas and caps and gowns.
A surprise party. A surprise prom.
And then he sets up a surprise prom, and he even has time to take him on the customary drive to Evanston.
You got to go to Evanston. So it's a Larry redemption episode, kind of a little bit. you know, the weird thing is
It's
just the
full
way.
of love, this
Yes,
episode.
it's full of love, and so a couple of things. We have precedents for this emotional episode. It's kind of still on brand. Occasionally, because we've seen the shot pulling out of the window every time, a couple of times. Occasionally, they're going to do these sweet emotional episodes. Now, what I like about this compared to last episode is an emotional episode that deals with joy instead of death and loss. Complete
That's
opposite
right.
swing, right? So
That's right.
And I just think the weird thing
And
is
if we're in their universe, if we're in their world, and this truly was what happened after Yaya Biki died, then
It's a nice
Balki
win.
deserves
Oh,
even
yeah,
more
yeah.
to feel uplifted because that was so heavy for him.
It's a nice win after the
And
the loss.
you'd think that he talked about like her wanting him to come and make something of himself. So you want to think that Yaya Biki is like proud of him where, up in heaven.
She'd be proud that he was the valedictorian first. We're number one.
Yeah.
We're number one. There's a fun Easter egg about the name of the publisher of Balki's history book, the Warren Weber Company of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Perfect Strangers producers, Tom Miller, William Buckley, and Michael Warren, all worked on the show Happy Days. And if you are a diehard Happy Days fan, you might remember that Warren Weber was Potsy's real name. They called him Potsy, but his real name in the show, Warren Weber, and that the show took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So they dropped the little Easter egg.
Really good Easter egg. I like that a lot. That's a deep dive. Yeah.
It's not the last Happy Days reference we are going to talk about, but before we do, let's get
Also,
to some...
Balki says in the episode, "This is the happiest day of my life,"
God,
which
he does-
also
he
made me
does
think
say
of
that.
Happy
There's
Days.
a couple of Happy Days episode references. Okay, Balki-isms.
We've been studying for hours, and I'm scraping the bottom of my bucket. And then when he thinks valedictorian means vegetarian, I don't think so, cousin. I enjoy eating meat so much.
All right, cousin, let's go for the mold.
Just between you and me, it's a lucky thing I don't have a percussion.
The tip of my brain. It's right on the tip of my brain. The promming. I love the
Promming before all the promming
before all
starts.
the
What is
promming
promming?
starts? What is
What's
promming?
a prom?
I don't know. He's promming.
It's where people do promming.
He's promming at the end of the episode. So I don't know. When are you promming?
That was some good promming at the end there. And then why should I feel like my heart has been torn out by the roots? Which also, like, I think that works, even though it's a misrepresentation.
If you think of like veins and stuff, how your heart is attached.
yeah,
it's
you
like
tear.
roots.
You got to tear it out from.
You're
What
talking
it's connected
literally.
to, yeah.
Don't be ridiculous. Not said.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
But what was said?
No, but we do have a Baba Sticky.
Baba
we have
Sticky.
an Oh My Lord,
That's great. And then Larry's
which is a favorite.
Yes. It's always good. And of course, running gag of Becky Joe Quinn, his arch nemesis. And he got his
Yeah, I think-
revenge. I don't know.
I mean, it was overdone on purpose, and I'm glad they gave Balki that line saying you have to let it go, because that's right at the point where all the viewers are also thinking, let it go, Larry. Enough.
Most importantly, we got a dance of joy finally.
Yes,
So great
after
to see.
forever.
Well-earned dance of joy. You got the cookie gag, the Larry dumping a soggy cookie into.
Which we're not sure if it's a running joke just yet, but it very well could be.
But what is a running
And
joke is
then-
Harriet jabbing Lydia with insults.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always fun.
That's good. I like that they're doing that now because these characters will become more and more frequent, and they're setting up that like dynamic of them burning each other.
Did you catch Dimitri? Balki's stuffed sheep appearance.
Dimitri's on the bookcase with blue goggles. I'm not sure why, but looking
Yeah.
down, maybe they're glasses,
Yeah.
and he's studying from a book. And then at the end, Dimitri's in the same place in a little cap and gown, a
Yeah,
graduation,
he
a black cap
graduated
and gown, and
too.
he's holding a diploma scroll.
He graduated from sheep school. Yes.
So that's Dimitri the sheep in the episode. We also have another Dimitri the sheep to talk about, and that is the Dimitri Sheep Instagram account, which we encourage everybody to go and like and follow and check out. It's Dimitri, Dimitri sheep on Instagram. And this is an Instagram account run by Dimitri the sheep himself, with themed photograph postings for every episode that we review, and it's very cleverly done. Let's check out this episode's post.
It's Dimitri himself. Don't question it.
Yes.
This one is posted.
Don't question it.
Chicago event management is the location.
That's the location
of the graduation, I guess. And you got Dimitri Sheep on a table with a bunch of books and things around him. In front of him is a composition book.
Composition notebook.
With a Sharpie. There's the book, The Rent Collector from Cameron. Who is that? Wright? Cameron Wright?
Which I feel like is a callback to the rent strike episode.
Oh, there's a couple of callbacks because just to the right of that is a ruler.
The ruler is a reference to Larry hitting his leg with the ruler when they're studying.
There, you see some twine. There's a sign written in Sharpie, America or Bust, like we see in the beginning of the episode.
No, America or Burst.
Or Burst, that's right. I always read it as Bust. Right next to that, and between him and Dimitri Sheep, who has a pencil in his ear, which is kind of fun. There's a box that says Corsages Are Us, Milan, Madrid, Mypos, and there's a fancy corsage in the box. This obviously for the promming. Because of promming. That's what you do at the promming. There is a light bulb. I don't understand the light bulb.
Is that like the lights that were in the apartment for prom? Or
maybe.
A light bulb like Larry has ideas.
Oh, Larry had an idea. It's just a light bulb. It's an LED
organize
light bulb
all this.
Yeah, maybe.
Like a light bulb went off, and he's like, "I will organize a prom."
And then the most important thing is there is a diploma of graduation set up next to him. It says this certifies that Dimitri Bartakoumas has completed night school in Mypos. So he completed night school all the way. He went back to Mypos and completed night school. Is that what this means?
So the only thing we're not completely sure about in this image is the light bulb, but I had some ideas. I'm sure that Dimitri Sheep will chime in and let us know if we have misinterpreted that.
Oh, did you notice this? It says teacher, the teacher of village history, Mr. Jones, and then it says superintendent of village schools, Warren Weber. It's on the diploma.
Ah, yes, very nice details in this.
Yeah.
A lot of details in this. The ruler, the books, just the light bulb, I think, is about Larry's ideas going off or something.
Sure, I'll allow it. Why not?
Or the lights in the prom in the apartment.
We don't have Balky Duds this episode, but you know, in the beginning, he's wearing this red shirt with this red vest with kind of square patterns, a little bit of gold. It's a nice vest. That's all. And then you get to see him in a graduation gown and cap, which is very satisfying. Yeah. And we talked about the prom dresses, which are Jennifer's was ridiculous.
And that gold embroidered frilly with the fringes. That's a little bit different than how I remembered it. Now it's time for the segment of our show that we call Perfect Strangers Today, or PS Today, in which we wonder and discuss what would happen if this story took place today. How would the episode be different? What lines would change? How would it be filmed differently? Does it hold up, or would it be modernized, or things like that? And we do have a little bit to talk about. Some of our listeners aptly pointed out that the Henry Fong character would not be tolerated today because it is overly stereotypical and the accent is over. Actually, it didn't really hit on any stereotypes.
No,
actually,
it was just the accent.
It was 3 lines. There were no like Asian stereotypes.
Well, is the stereotype that he's really smart and he finished first? Is that the stereotype?
Yeah, but they're all in school trying to. Yeah, maybe overachiever, but that's it. It wasn't much of a stereotype. Balky also finished first, and he didn't know the extra credit. I think so. Actually, there weren't a whole lot of stereotypes. It was just an overdone, exaggerated caricature type East Asian accent.
Henry Fong is at the prom though at the end, which was nice. He was nice to see. He was invited.
And he's looking happy. Yeah, he doesn't hold a grudge like Larry did. So I don't know. Would that accent still exist today? Actually, probably. There's a lot of discussion about Kim's Convenience, a show out of Canada about a Korean Canadian family that runs a convenience store and such. And I quite like the show, but a lot of people and a lot of people of Asian heritage have a problem with some of the tropes that are portrayed. And I think the parents' accents there are way overdone as well.
Oh, okay.
in that show. It doesn't really sound authentic to me.
Simu Liu is a household name thanks to Shang-Chi.
Yeah, now he is.
Everyone's
But the
got
parents'
him.
accent.
Well,
So
fresh off the boat, the mom had an accent.
yeah, would we have it? But hers was more natural.
It was really good. That actress, she's amazing. I forgot her name, but she speaks perfect
just like
English.
her natural accent. Yeah.
But it was such a natural, like it was fresh off the boat. They just come to the country.
It was a respectful accent.
Yes.
Constance Wu is
amazing. She's great. Yeah.
But the question is, would we have an overdone accent today? Absolutely. We see it still.
Yeah.
It's on TV. Actors are still asked to play accents, Asian actors, particularly in auditions and stuff like that. We are moving away from it. Maybe this wouldn't exist today, but it didn't bother me so much. Yeah, the accent was overdone. But again, as we said before, at least they had an actual Asian actor playing an Asian character, and it wasn't a white actor doing an overdone accent, which has been done with other types of people, especially in the 80s. And there weren't too many there were no stereotypes actually being addressed here. He just finished first. That's it. And he knew all the answers.
Well, and now, thanks to COVID, we have seen Zoom graduations and online schooling and virtual graduations. So maybe a little of that would have come into play. All this. I mean, are there still books to study? Is it all online? I don't know. I haven't been to school in decades.
There are still books. But everything else. Oh yeah, the prom dresses would be updated.
They're still promming.
In better dresses.
Yeah, everything else would be the same, really. I can't think of anything else that would change drastically.
They still play Pomp and Circumstance. You would play it from your phone.
Oh, yeah.
Not from a boombox.
Or Bluetooth
It would be much easier to deal with Bluetooth speakers. Or just like hire a violinist, which is what most graduations do. A little quartet. And what else? Everything else would hold up, actually.
Yeah.
Is night school still a thing?
I think it's still.
GEDs and stuff?
Sure. You got to get it somehow.
They probably get graduations.
Maybe they don't get graduations and they just get little
Valedictorians are still a thing.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And they still give speeches.
Yeah. Well, let's get to reactions from our listeners from our Facebook group. Sophia got some fun ones. I love when these elicit personal stories that people from their lives.
This is the relatable part of this show. So first up, we have cousin Pam Hitchcock, who writes, personal note. When I was in high school, I was studying with my best friend and she threw in a trick question while quizzing me. It was about a picture of a tree in the text. I scoffed and told her that would never be on the test. As you can guess, it was a bonus question. Oh my goodness, Cousin Pam.
See, Cousin Pam is a good
wild.
Thing. It's a good thing she asked about the stupid tree. You got to see little details sometimes.
And you know that probably one of these writers had that same experience, and that's where that came from.
Sure. Speaking of writing, Lauren Miller, Cousin Lauren says, this reminds me of the Happy Days episode where Fonzie got his diploma. Richie and gang ended up rushing their graduation speeches, etc., in order to allow Fonzie time to give his speech. I was very glad that Larry made a similar effort for Balky, and there's a reason. Cousin Lauren, this is going to remind you of Happy Days. We just talked about how the producers worked on Happy Days. There was a classic 2-part episode of that series called Graduation, in which Marion reveals Fonzie has been attending night school so that he can get his GED high school class with everyone. So I don't know if it's like they're recycling plot lines, but it is a...
But also in that episode, Fonzie also gets told that he can't graduate with the rest of the class because night school students are not included in the regular class graduation. And then all his friends have a discussion and they speed up their own ceremony so that they can include Fonzie and have him make a speech.
And he was valedictorian.
Because he was valedictorian. Yeah. So this is like a recycle.
Very similar.
They even write a script. Come on, writers. This is like they're like, let's just take this story and make it again.
All the Fonzies to Balky and change all the Marions.
So maybe we could bank this premise in that category that we've previously spoken about of like these repeating premises across shows, like buying a used car at the dealership or like learning how to drive with groceries, with cans of beans or whatever in the living room.
Oh yeah. Like
another one is graduating from night school
Yeah.
and needing a graduation.
Cousin Lauren, also who runs the Larry Duds Instagram account, she caught a little continuity error in the beginning where Larry's wearing his plaid shirt where he's quizzing Balky. You see very clearly his wrists don't have a watch on. And then when he wakes up from oversleeping, he has a watch on his wrist. So maybe he put it on at some point.
Maybe he put it on. Maybe he's like, oh, where's my watch?
It
I better
just
set it.
appeared
And fall asleep.
there.
Yeah. But good catch, cousin.
Good
Lauren.
catch. Cousin John has a great catch here, a great reference to a side character. He says the teacher is played by
Mr.
Peter
Jones.
Crombie. Mr. Jones, played by actor Peter Crombie, best known as Crazy Joe Davola on Seinfeld. Yes,
What was Crazy Joe
I
Davola?
remember. You remember he's going to put the kibosh on Larry and on Jerry.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Jerry's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
going
yeah.
to put the kibosh on me. He said he's going to put the kibosh on me. He played Pagliacci, the sad clown, and then snapped. And then Jerry and Kramer thought they were coming for him because he was a
That's
little
right, that's
Crazy
right.
Joe Davola. Put the kibosh. He said he's going to put the kibosh.
Okay.
It was the kibosh episode.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great catch. Cousin John also says Larry's speech is heartfelt, but even if the teacher wasn't quitting, it's not his problem. Larry seems like the guy complaining to the cashier about the price of milk.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, like, the teacher was Larry's entry to this, like, administration, right? Like, he has some say, he has some power, some influence. So Larry only knows the teacher. Larry doesn't know the principal, and he's right there. So he pleads with the teacher, not like blaming him that it's his problem, but like asking him for help. Like, can't we do something about this? And we also have some comments from Cousin Evelyn, another favorite in the Facebook group. Cousin Evelyn writes, Balky, the man who can remember entire memos word for word and repeat them back after having just glanced at them days prior, couldn't see the name of the publisher of the textbook when he first tried to remember it. Darned pornographic memory will get you every time. Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit. My take is that the pornographic memory strains a little bit when he's under pressure, and Larry was making...
It did come back to him.
It did, but that's Larry's fault. Larry made this unnecessarily a high-pressure situation for Balky, which it wasn't previously. And it did come back to him, so I still stand behind. I think he still has that pornographic memory. It was just a moment of pressure. And Cousin Evelyn also writes, okay, so I feel differently about this episode than everyone else does. I thought Balky's hurt when he finds out there's no graduation was heartbreaking. His graduation speech was very touching, and the surprise prom made me more emotional than I expected.
Oh, yeah.
You said that too.
Yeah.
And she says, to me, this is an immigrant who never imagined these things. And in this episode, he realizes so many dreams he didn't even know were possible when he first came to America.
Yeah.
I agree with this.
That's the big
as well.
message,
I mean,
I
I
think,
agree with
overall.
everyone. Everyone's making good points here. This is just one of those episodes that people will remember differently.
You're just showing his journey of his dream as an immigrant and him, achieving things. And yeah, I think the big part is the immigrant dream and what he achieves. Like that's the main thing on this episode. It's great.
Right.
It's great.
And a big part of this episode was like this relationship and this love between these two characters, showing the selfless part of Larry for once, which is refreshing after so much
Manipulation. Yeah, we get
so much manipulation.
2 manipulation episodes and then 2 episodes where Larry is very heartfelt and he's just a good friend. So, okay, Larry's worked his way back into...
Of course he has. We still have like 100 more episodes with him.
I can't hate that guy already. But you were pushing it, Larry Appleton, for a while. This was needed.
You were. And leave that Becky Joe alone. Let it go.
In your face, Becky Joe Quinn. Stay subscribed, listener. Next week, one word, handcuffs. You know it's going to be funny.
Handcuffs. You know it's going to be funny anytime handcuffs are the topic of a sitcom episode. All right. If you are with us, if you have strong feelings about this episode or others, please join us. Join in on the conversation. Share your ideas, your reflections, your memories, your feelings about the episodes with us. You can do that by visiting danceofjoypod.com. There's a button at the bottom right of our of the main page where you can leave us a voice message and just talk to us, give us your thoughts, or you can send us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Also on that website are links to all of our social media accounts. You can also contact us on the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Instagrams, and you will find on that website every single place where the podcast itself is available to like and listen to and subscribe and review. All of that in one website. Go there, visit visit danceofjoypod.com. Let us know your thoughts. Join us on this journey. And if you are listening to this show and if you are watching Perfect Strangers along with us, what is the most important thing you should do, Imran?
Most important thing is remember to flip your mattress at least once a year. You don't want it getting all lumpy. It will affect your sleep.
And wash your sheets more regularly than you do. What is the next most important thing you should do, Imran?
Share this show, listener. You can text this show to someone right out of Apple Podcasts. Anything, what you're listening, the app you're listening to this in now has 3 little dots somewhere that you press and it says share this, post it to your social media, send it to a friend, get us more ear holes to listen, and we're going to spread joy via 2 cousins who are just funny. Thank you for listening to Dance of Joy, listener. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey,